How you doing? I'm Jason with Buy, Build, Sell, and by day I am a Los Angeles contractor and developer, real estate developer. I have absolutely no business in stocks. I also have no business in cryptocurrency and forex trading and all of that stuff. It's like right over my head. But I want to tell you my story. So, it pretty much started, I want to say, 4 years ago. I was offered, we were selling a house in Sherman Oaks, and the house was for sale for 3.5. And someone came to us and offered to buy the house for $3 million in Bitcoin. This was 4 years ago. Again, kind of shady on the exact timeline, but let's call it about 4 years ago. No idea what Bitcoin was then. Wasn't even on my radar, nor did I ever even look it up to find out what it was that this guy was offering. I basically just said no. No idea how it would trade, no idea how I would take it and transfer it into cash. You know, thinking about I gotta pay investors back, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. You know, the whole craziness of thinking how to take on that sort of dollar would just be weird, right? So really no second guessing that whole entire experience. And about 2 years later, Bitcoin had its first shot, its first extreme explosion, where it hit somewhere in the 30s. And everyone was talking about it. Or maybe, I think it had hit like 17. And then it like creeped up to 30 and then it just shot back down. But everyone was talking about it. I remember this being like, wow, everyone Bitcoin this, Bitcoin that. You know, all the Instagram pages started talking about Bitcoin. Everyone was talking about Bitcoin. If you weren't invested in Bitcoin, you were what's wrong with you? Why don't you just get into it? You couldn't go to a party without someone being like, yeah, whatever, I invested in Bitcoin like, what? Forever ago, bought it for $1. And you always find those stories intriguing. Like, wow, how did you know? I got interested. I got curious. And so I took very little money. I mean, in the grand scheme of life. I invested in Bitcoin. I invested in Bitcoin, I invested in Litecoin, and I invested in a few other, like Ethereum and a few others. And I invested at, I want to say, 16, 15, and 12, and maybe 9 something. I thought that 17 was going to be low, and I bought, and it's 15. I thought, okay, that's the lowest it'll go. I just kept on buying into it. I would say my total investment in the cryptocurrency world was probably about $2,500. So again, for someone who plays with a lot of money and risks a lot of money every single day, that's not that much money. But I wanted to be a part of the game. I wanted to have this experience that everyone else was having and kind of just see what it was like. This was 2 years ago. And you guys probably follow my channel. You know what I do. You know that I'm not a bored person. I have a lot going on. And coming home every single day to day trade cryptocurrencies that how are you going to know how well it was going to do that day? Like, you don't even know what these companies do. You don't even know like anything about them. Just that they're a coin, and they're cheap or they're expensive, and they have this randomly inflated value. Was draining. I mean, I would come home and spend hours on the computer, buy, sell, set this here, set that there, and you get some guy who's giving out free tips of what's gonna pop, what's gonna drop, and I realized it was just a complete waste of time for me. I wasn't willing to put in a larger amount of money, and two, it was taking up a lot of my time, and it wasn't really making me that much money. So I'd say about 2 weeks in, having some fun, I dropped it. I just completely stopped. I didn't log in anymore. I just let the accounts sit where I laid them. And the answer to your question is yes. I had Bitcoin, I had Ethereum, I had Dodge, I had Tron, I had all of these things just sitting there. I don't even know what I bought them at. And then like this extreme spike happens. Bitcoin's at 40 something $1,000. Dodge is up to 8 cents. Like, all of these things are starting to happen, and I'm like, man, I should have put more money in there. But I didn't. And honestly, I shouldn't have. Because for me to have put money into an account and I'm going to sit there for 2 years waiting to find out what's going to happen would have been foolish. Now today, I'm up. I think, it's done relatively well for its investment return. But who cares? Again, it's not like it's $1 million. It's not like it's $100,000. It's a few grand. And don't get me started on the state of what this money should do, what it can do. Yes, it has so much potential, but what's potential if it's in constant flux? When we have inflation or deflation in the dollar, you don't see the price of coffee drop immediately or rise immediately. The coffee at Starbucks is still, $2.99, whatever it is. I don't know. I don't drink at Starbucks, but you don't see that inflation or deflation, right? The coffee is still the same. So why can't Bitcoin also be the same? Right? But literally every single time you would spend, you buy a coffee with Bitcoin, your price of that coffee is going to change. So there's a little bit of issues I have on that. Not to say that it can't be counteracted or with different thoughts come to a different conclusion. I definitely agree that there are arguments to both sides. But I'm very curious to see where this goes as a early adapter to the cryptocurrency world, but not yet an adapter to the functionality of it in actual practice. Sure, you can now buy a Tesla with Bitcoin. But again, I look at that and go, well, you can buy a Tesla for, let's say, $50,000, or you can buy it for $50,000 in Bitcoin that might go down to something less, something more. I don't know. Anyway, these are my thoughts on Bitcoin. I hope I shared something interesting with you guys, and I'll see you on the next video.